Hey, what's up and how's it going? This is Toby, and in today's video we are going to create a virtual try-on using Tik Tok's Effect House and its new 3D hand tracking feature. So to get started, if you haven't already, go to effecthouse.tiktok.com and download the Effect House software. In this video I'm going to use version 4.8.2. But before we get started with Effect House, we of course need some kind of 3D model, something that we can attach to our hand or to our wrist. And for that we can go to sketchfab.com and we can simply search for some 3D models such as rings or such as wristwatches. So simply enter rings, for example, go to downloadable, and then we can look for something nice that we want to download. Make sure that if you have this sign on the top right, this is a free model that you can also download to your computer for free. And if we click on this, for example, this is one of those, a lot of the rings, I think, even the one rings. So this is pretty nice. And we can simply download this one as a GLB file. So also make sure that the file size is not too big. So 600 kilobytes is really small because the whole effect can only have a total size of 8 megabytes. So let's download this one. And then I also looked for a very nice wristwatch, for example. So this one is pretty good. And we can go ahead and download this one too. And this time I'm taking the GLB texture size 1K. So download this one. And next up we can go ahead into our Effect House software and create a new project. So for that, simply hit create project, and it will take a second, and now we're here in the software. So first of all, what we want to do, let's set up preview on the right hand here. So if you're not seeing this, you can toggle it with this button here. And we want to search for something, and I think this is already pretty good, but that will basically show if our effect is working, if the hand tracking is actually doing what we want it to do. But looking through these effects here, I think that we are pretty good with the hand appear person for here. So next up, let's go to our hierarchy. Let's open this one up and let's add a object. Let's go to AR tracking and let's select the 3D hand tracker. Perfect, so now we have our 3D view open here, and we can already see in our preview that something is happening, namely that we do have a working hand effect already, which is pretty nice. So then we can also see on the left side that we have two new objects, which is our 3D hand tracker left and 3D hand tracker right. And these again consist out of the wrist, which is a so-called rig. So these are all the important points. For example, the index, middle ring, pinky, thumb root. And below that, we also have some more points, which we're going to take a look at in a second. And we also have this hand model itself. So basically, this is the model, and this is pretty much driving the animations and deforming the model, if you want to say so. And we have that for the left and the right hand. And if we now click on those elements here, so those bone elements, we can see that something on the hand is indeed showing. And this is the wrist. Then we, for example, have the thumb root. Then we can go ahead and have the thumb. So this is starting here. And then we'll have additional points which will be tracked. And these points symbolize all the points which will be tracked within the camera view. So the algorithm that is doing the hand tracking is basically recognizing all these points on your hand and then replicating them in real time with this hand model and this rig basically. So next up, let's import our 3D models, and for that we can go to our assets and create a new folder. So create a new folder. Let's do a right click and let's rename this one to 3D models, like this. And then from our downloads, we can simply drag in the ring, like that, import. And it already created a folder itself, but we can drag this folder into our 3D models folder, so we have everything neat and tidy. And then we can also take our watch here, drag it in, click on import, and the same thing, let's drag the watch folder to the 3D models folder. Alright, so next up what we want to do is we want to go ahead and choose on what finger we want to put on the ring. So I would say that for this example, one hand is enough, and this is the right hand. So let's go ahead and actually disable the left hand here. And then on the right hand, let's go to our wrist, then the ring root, so the ring finger, which is starting here. And then we could potentially go deeper than this, but I think for a ring you would probably wear it somewhere here. So we simply gonna choose the bone that is closest to whatever position we want to put our 3D object. And then we're going to select the ring and we're going to drag it under the ring root, like this. We can see that nothing is really happening and there's some weird flickering here, and this is because seemingly our ring is way too big. So this is truly a ring of power. However, we need to adjust its size. So let's go ahead and click on the ring, make sure that the scale is being scaled down proportional. And let's go ahead and actually enter 0.01, like that. And if we're gonna ahead and zoom in now, we can see that, well, the ring actually scaled down quite a bit. Then let's go to our rotation here, and let's go ahead and rotate it on the Z-axis so that it is actually looking a bit better and actually fitting the finger. So if you've chosen another model, by the way, you might have issues when dragging this in. So the model might be too big, too small, or you can't really see it. So there are two ways to handle this. Either you're going to go and select a different model, for example, from Sketchfab, or you're going to go inside of a program like Blender. And this one will allow you to simply manipulate and see what's wrong with your 3D model and do some adjustments. But in this case, I already chose some models where I knew that they would work. So yeah, so just be aware of that. So we can see that there's a little bit of offset here behind, so in between the, well, the anchor point of the ring and the model itself. So for that, we can go ahead and go a bit deeper into the root and just move the circle a bit back like this. I don't know what's the lamp actually doing here. I'm not sure that we need this, so let's turn this one off and let's take a look. And yep, I think this is looking a lot better. So let's move this one back a bit further so that the root and the object's origin are at the same position. And then we can go ahead and collapse this one and move the whole ring forward a bit more. And let's go ahead and hit E to again rotate it, and so make sure that it's actually fitting the ring, the finger quite well. So for that, let's also take a look at the bottom, and I think we just move it a bit further down, maybe hit R, I think yes, R for scale, or simply click here and scale it a bit up like this. And I think this is looking not too bad. So let's go back up, let's move it a bit further down. And yeah, so you gotta experiment a bit with this, but I think we're quite good. And if we're gonna take a look at our preview here, we can also see that, well, the ring seems to be fitting quite well around the hand. So next up, let's go ahead and test, and we can simply click on preview in TikTok. And then within the TikTok app, we can simply go ahead and scan the QR code. So as we can see in TikTok, this is already working quite well. Of course, it's not perfect, but I think this is the first version of this 3D hand tracking, and also the phone that I'm using is not necessarily the fastest and latest one, but for that I think it's working quite well. Alright, so back in the editor, what we want to do now is we want to next up drag in the wristwatch, and for that we're going to go into our 3D models folder, and for that we're going to take the digital vintage watch, and we're going to drag this under the wrist. And here we go, we can see this one is also a little bit too big. So let's go ahead and again, first of all, rotate it like that. I think this is fine. And then we're going to scale it down, and yep, I think this is okay. So let's always check from below. So yeah, I think this is not too bad. We can make it a little bit smaller, but then would probably disappear somewhere under the sides of the wrist here, so maybe we don't want that. So what we'll see though is that kind of the hand tracking is ending here, which is not ideal because our watch would usually be somewhere here. And to counter this a little bit, this is not the perfect solution, and maybe in the future we're going to have a little bit more tracking room here. But what we can do is we can go ahead and add to the wrist a object, and we're going to take a 3D object, and we're going to say we want to add a sphere, and then we can go ahead and basically expand the wrist a little bit. So we can go to the scale and do some adjustments here and make sure that it's not too big, but that it's actually, you know, a bit like it would expand the wrist. So for that, let's move it a bit further like this, and let's make it a lot bigger like that. And I think that, well, this might be okay. So then let's make sure to drag the sphere on the wrist. And we can see here that it looks a bit like we have expanded, you know, the hand tracking. Of course, this sphere and this area is not being actively tracked, which might look a little weird, but still this is the best that we can do right now. Alright, so this is already pretty good, but we have one problem left, and this is that, of course, well, we have this white material on the hand, which is not looking too great. We want it to be invisible, but we also want the hand to occlude the 3D object or the part of the 3D object that is under it. And for that, we can simply go ahead in our assets, click on plus, and then we can go to material and add a occluder material. And this is exactly doing what we need. Then let's go ahead to our sphere and let's drag in the occluder material here on the right side and also on our right hand model. So let's drag in the occluder. And now we can see in our preview that actually, well, we have this invisible effect which is still occluding the part which is behind. Awesome, so now if we test this in our app, we can see that things are working quite well. Again, it's not perfect, but I think for some just easy visualization, for some quick AR effect, this is pretty great. And of course, as always, let's quickly check with our data size here. And we have about 4 of 8 megabytes, which is quite good. And then we can submit it to TikTok and send it to our friends and use it as we wish. Alright, but that's it for this tutorial, so I hope it was useful. If you have any questions, feel free to write a comment below. And as always, thanks a lot for watching and see you next time.